Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public comments? If you have public comment, come right up to the podium, please. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Barbara Kingsley, White Creek. I would just like to commend our superintendent. I've been reading in the paper is how the schools are all trying to get on a bandwagon for solar, and they commented that Cambridge did was one of the first, and some of the other schools are going to be out of the loop because they waited too long. So that's all I want to say. So I'm proud of us. Thank you.
I'm not a member of the public, but Barb, let me just dovetail onto that as part of the building committee. The amount of solar we were going to get was 50K, and we're up to 200 now.
Yay!
The law was
That's
changed,
excellent.
and so we're going to have panels on this building and the district office, as far as I know.
Yep.
Excellent.
Good job.
They increased them from the original 50 to 200,000.
I'm Naomi Marsh, and this has nothing to do with.
You have to press the button. I don't think that's
Oh,
on.
the button. There we go. Does that work?
Yep.
Is it on us? Yeah. I just want to commend this school on partnering with the community gardens people to do the Kids Garden Project, which has just made an enormous difference in terms of fresh produce for the food pantry. And just kind of parenthetically, on behalf of the community gardens, we've submitted a grant application that'll build on that foundation to provide food and nutrition and activity kinds of things at the local food pantry that is open to the public. So,
Nice.
Yay to you all again for doing that. More green.
Thank you, Naomi. Any other public comments?
Is it on now? It is on now?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to appeal to the board, as I did back 3 years ago for my daughter. I'm John Montgomery, and I'm from White Creek, and my son and daughter, both Ian Montgomery and Donna Montgomery, are students here at the school. Ian is in 8th grade,
And
my daughter.
pardon me, John. I don't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to make sure you were aware. One of the things that, if we're going to talk about your child specifically, we would like to welcome you to executive session right after this to meet with the board.
About what time?
And the
is that?
superintendent. It's a fairly short agenda this evening, so it probably won't be that long at all.
7:30, 8 o'clock or so. I mention it only because I have to pick up my daughter at 7:15 for volleyball practice.
Oh yeah, probably about 7:30, 8 o'clock probably.
Between 7:30 and 8.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll put you on the agenda for executive session. It's just that I'm not allowed to allow specific students to be discussed in an open forum, okay? So Kate, can we put him on the agenda for this evening? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay. Superintendent and administrative, oops, I'm sorry. Yes, superintendent and administrative reports. Oops, I skipped them. I'll do the approvals after.
So, Holly,
Oops,
so are we supposed to smile for the camera or anything, or?
please do.
When he
And
gets
this is
to the-
still on? Yes, okay.
When he gets to the presentation, we're going to turn the camera to show what you're doing.
Oh, well, we're pretty much at the presentation. Of course, I can't see a thing, but
Holly, you're up first.
Naomi, do you mind just introducing, would you like a little introduction or?
I was ready to start talking.
Carrie's gonna introduce us.
For those of you that don't know, Naomi and Holly are members of our Communication Advisory Committee that was developed, and I would really say very instrumental in what you're about to see in regards to a draft plan that is being proposed to the board. So Naomi is right there, and Holly's right there. And they're gonna go over the draft plan that a group of constituents put together, and I believe they actually will be recognizing who they are in this presentation, so you'll get a chance to see who's been a part of working on this. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Holly, take it away. Okay. I guess we have to use.
Is there a clicker, or do you actually have to touch it?
You're gonna have to hit the arrows.
Do you want me to go over there? Do that for you?
Well, no, it's fine, I
You
just
got
want
it
to know
on
how
here?
to operate it.
Oh, I thought it was in the way back, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Oh, we gotta find a key that works, that would
Should be
I think it's the arrow.
be. Yeah.
There you go.
we go. But we skipped past.
And I'm sorry, Naomi,
What is
is there
this?
extra copies for, was there some put up there? I don't know.
Extra copies of
There
this?
are-
No.
The plan, okay, I wasn't sure if there was some up there
I
or
have
not.
the wrong thing up. I'm sorry, folks. Technology, communication might be one thing, but technology is
Would you
another.
like
So.
me over?
Probably.
Yeah, light would be good.
Thank you very much.
I'm really sorry.
You looking for that PowerPoint?
Yeah, I just loaded the plan itself, and that's not gonna be good to us. Alright. Gee, I thought I had it all together here. Yeah.
Well, if the board doesn't mind, we could do approval of the minutes while we are
Yeah, why not?
letting, that way you're not, everyone staring at you.
Yeah, great.
I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the minutes. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Okay. I think
It should be the arrow key.
I think you did that.
Okay. Are we all set
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, again, my name is Holly Emerson, and I decided personally to join the communication group because I've been very outspoken about the lack of communication that comes from the school to the community. And I am a type of person personally where if I feel as though it's a problem, and if I voice my opinion, I'll put my actions where my mouth is. So that's just for me personally, but I think many people that you'll see on this advisory group feel the same. What we try to do is we try to represent all stakeholders, including people from the administration team, 2 members from the school board, a faculty member, and various members that were interested in this throughout the community. Other faculty members are here, like Holly McDonald, again, some other community members that were included, but maybe not as quite active. And then we did have a volunteer consultant help form the group and kind of form the group's mission statement. Okay.
I'm gonna keep sitting down if you all don't mind. I have a real problem with my back today, and it hurts a lot.
Use the microphone though, because unless I'm hard of hearing.
Okay.
Careful.
So this slide is to give you all, take you all back actually to the time when the committee, the communication committee was formed. And these 3 items here are what was given as a charge to the committee. And what the highlighted or the bolded, develop an effective communication plan, is actually what this particular piece is all about. So in terms of what we're presenting here today and presenting to the board to be approved or to be considered for approval is that number 1 bullet, the development of a plan. The other 2 we'll get back to in a couple of minutes, but they're grayed out because we did not touch those things for the most part. The other piece that's important to note for into the future is that this plan and our work was advisory only. That was set up that way in the very beginning. In other words, it's not our job necessarily to make sure that what we say or what we put forth in this plan happens, nor does it mean that what is put forth in this plan will happen. This is basically recommendations to the board and the administration as to what our best thinking was in terms of expanding and improving communication. Secondarily, these 3 bullets here were a part of some of the rhetoric that came out of the discussions about the communication plan as to what it is that it's supposed to accomplish. Hopefully, it presents a clear and concise framework. Hopefully, it is designed to promote strong relationships amongst all the stakeholders. And last but not least is to combat any negative perceptions, and I would actually say try to avoid any negative perceptions, and to also support all the wonderful things that happen at CCS. So again, what's really important to me is that the committee didn't make this stuff up. This is what our job was to do, and hopefully this is what we actually accomplished. We certainly tried our best. Holly?
Okay, so the next 2 slides basically go down through the process of how the group came together and essentially formulated a plan. This really started last fall when people, the public in particular, really came together and said, you know, we really need to think about perhaps coming up with some form of communication plan. And believe it or not, many other districts actually have their own communication plan. So as you can read through, basically there's like a beginning, like I just described, a middle, and then certainly the end. So the middle basically, the middle of this process basically represents where the group kind of met, we kind of got together. At that point, we did form a mission statement, and as we kept going together and meeting, we really did establish 3 basic goals. We needed to write a communication plan with the charge that the Board of Education had given us, and we needed to make it so that it would be feasible for the district to implement the plan after it would be adopted.
The 3rd goal was to have fun. You forgot that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Doesn't it look like we had fun?
That was my number 1 goal, if you want to know the truth. Okay.
You kept it fun.
So anyhow, as we entered into the summer months, that's really when we worked very hard in implementing what we hope that the Board of Education will adopt tonight. As you'll notice here, the group met actually several times to go through basically line by line for revisions. So there were several meetings in place where revisions were heard by all stakeholders that attended, and everybody had an opportunity to really kind of put their feelings out and justify why they thought that certain changes should be done. So we're at the point now where we are really hoping that the board will approve the plan, and we're hoping that this will essentially provide the community, which would obviously include parents, the elderly, and even people without children, all people who live in the district, all people who pay taxes, better communication.
Again, I'm presenting this information, and we included it in the plan, in the attachments, in order to demonstrate the grounding that we had for the plan in stuff out there in the so-called real world. So we looked at more than these 5 plans from districts, but these were really key. And as you'll see, 2 of them are from New York State schools, Elmira and Glens Falls City. it's a little hard to come by a communication plan from a small school that's, what do I want to say, congruent with ours or consistent with ours. But really, when you looked at all of these plans, there wasn't all that much difference from one to the other. So we pretty much use these as our template for what should be included and not included. The second set of documents, relevant public relations documents, these these are really relevant in terms of what our recommendation is as a committee as to a process to be used for the development of communication strategies and activities. You can see public relations, obviously, or I think it's obvious, is really committed to knowing what they're doing and making sure that they've got the best possible strategies that are responsive to their constituents. So it makes kind of sense that those documents came into play here. And last but not least is the communications plan, which came out of the National School Boards Association. The School Boards Association kind of is the reference point for these folks who are sitting up here in terms of allegedly the best and the brightest and the greatest stuff that's out there. We won't go there in conversation or discussion, but definitely they do have some fabulous resources. And in relation to communications plan, they not only have a draft communication plan for people to look at and to pirate or whatever, develop on their own. They have a whole toolkit of materials that are available online for anyone and everyone. So those were our primary resources. That's not exhaustive, but seriously, if you want more, talk to me later. This is a this is the contents of the plan itself. And this afternoon I was looking at the first plan that we did, and the first plan was 30 plus pages long. So in the process of those discussions that Holly was talking about, I wouldn't say we went to bare bones, because sometimes bare bones isn't very useful, because you know that's so bare that you can't really figure out what it is that you were talking about. But we definitely took out stuff that did not seem to be consistent with a communication plan. On the other hand, we put a lot of things into the attachments so that for the inquiring minds who want to know, you can go to the attachment section and find things that you might think about or might question in the other sections. So I'm not going to belabor this, because pretty soon you'll be able to have this in your hands, but we looked at audiences from, are they internal or external? We looked at communication types as things like media, print, face-to-face, that kind of stuff. And tried to think in terms of where we were here in Cambridge in terms of our communication activities and strategies. Again, this is not our job to put that out there as what needs to happen, but it was helpful to inform the actual content of the plan. I'd ask you if it made sense, but we're not supposed to have dialogue yet. This is what I was telling you about a minute ago, coming from the public relations field. The RACE model, R-A-C-E, not to be confused with Race to the Top, is a model for handling communication, as it says, that starts with research, moves to analysis, goes to the format of the communication, and then assesses the effectiveness of the communication. That's, I don't know what you all think, but I think that that's one of the things that happens least frequently. And that it's really important, because if you're not effectively communicating, then you're just going to keep going around like a little rat in a cage. So I'm not going to go through all of this, but it's very interesting to me, and I found it. We wrapped our stuff from previous, like the target populations and all of that, into this template in order to make it be as consistent and appropriate as possible. Holly's now going to talk about the survey that was done.
All right, when we were conducting our meetings, the group had come up with lots of different ways that the communication between the school district and the community could be improved. With the upcoming budget at that time, we thought that perhaps it might be a great idea to solicit some data from the community as to what they thought would be the most important topics or ways to go about trying to communicate better with the community. So what you see here is we had a total of 469 surveys that were completed after people came in to vote. There were a few that were done online. So this survey basically had these topics like school and student achievements, the budgeting, curricular opportunities, safety issues, school functions, all of that you see there. Now, what you see here is you see numbers and you see the percentages, okay? Now, what's important to understand about the way that the survey was conducted is that this survey, it had you check all that apply. So that's why you'll see that, you know, if you tally up the votes, it's obviously more than 469. So these were all the main topics that people really felt as though were very important in various ways to communicate with the community. You'll see there that, you know, essentially on the left-hand side, those are all the ones that people felt were very important. And on the right-hand side, those are the same topics, but people had ranked them as very important / important to them. Safety issues and school functions, they fall hand in hand with each other. Certainly at the top of people's list would be the student and school achievements, ranking in at a 55%, very important, and very important important combined at 78%. So we did have some others at the very bottom. There were people wrote in, like communication with the board. I think that's only 3 people. Professional development would be 1, and information on the arts. So that's why, because those numbers were so low, we didn't really include them in the percentages. But to me, this survey really proved a few things. First of all, the community in itself feels as though communication is quite lacking. And to me, this also proves to us that these are the various ways, or the top ways, that we need to get information out to the community, because these are the topics that the community is most wanting to know more about. So the next part of the survey was basically, I prefer the school district community to use the following methods. And those, again, ranking very important. The number 1 way that people thought that should happen is through the local newspapers, and it goes on down through, you know, community forums and meetings, the website. Even people had indicated, you know, Facebook, letters to guardians, the newspaper, and again, those percentages fell the same as I had explained previously. Email blasts, and those other types of things. Regardless, this survey again proves to us that we need to start using some other methods, some other vehicles as to presenting information to the community and getting more accurate information out to everybody. So, all right, so at this point, we are obviously hoping that the Board of Education will approve the plan, all right? And so after the plan is in place, we really would like an opportunity to talk about what could possibly be next. Certainly we need to implement the plan. And we need to develop better communication channels. And those surveys prove to the community that this is really something that the community as a whole would like to see happen better. We need to discuss, again, better communication. We need to promote it, and that goes for all facets and all stakeholders within the community. And we need to further the mission of the board in order for that to happen.
I just had to do that. It's my understanding that if you all have questions, that we would be happy to try to answer them. Any questions, or is that happening? It's my understanding that you're asking the board to review this plan.
True. That too.
And to approve this plan. So I would like to take a little bit of time with my colleagues here on the board and just talk about this for a few minutes. Is there any discussion in regards to the plan? Do we feel that we have?
I have a question for Holly. Holly, you mentioned during the presentation, you said this survey shows that communication is lacking. I just missed that part of the survey. I mean, I think the survey was asking people's preferences of what they want to hear about and how they want to hear the things they want to hear about, but I didn't see an area in your presentation, and I don't recall having taken the survey myself, the question of do you think that, you know, I don't think that respondents were asked if they felt communication was adequate or inadequate.
You are accurate in the sense that I don't believe that that was a direct question on the survey. That comment was probably an editorial comment by myself as to, again, my charge as to why I thought that I would even join a committee on my own time. Obviously, I'm in many facets of the community, and every time I'm in different facets of the community, that seems to be the #1 area of concern. And that also seems to be the stem of why people's concerns get even larger in the sense that they are given misinformation.
Okay, thank you.
Could I respond to that too, Paul?
Sure.
I totally agree with you, it was not on the survey. And, you know, I think that there is anecdotal reporting that communication, you know, slips here and there. I personally don't take that very seriously. I'm much more interested in hearing from the person what it is that they believe they know, which is often very different than what things are. And so I would turn back to the race model, which incorporates into it, should we use, ways of digging that out and prioritizes finding out why it is that there is a negative perception. Is it based on anything real? If so, what can we do about it? Is it based on misinformation? Well, that's clear what we can do about that. So I would just.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear, I mean, I just wondered if there was a part of the survey I hadn't seen.
No, there wasn't.
My own opinion is no matter how good communication is for any organization, it can always be improved.
Absolutely.
So getting back to the discussion within the board, does the board feel that they've had ample time to take a look at this plan before a decision for this evening, or do you feel that we need more time to review this plan?
Can you tell me what you have in mind for this committee? Is this the end of this committee, or are they going to be, do we have to authorize them to continue on with implementation?
Yeah.
We don't have a communications committee.
Correct. And also the piece that wasn't pointed out yet is Naomi actually handed out this evening. One of the things that we talked about in our committee was the fact that one, this was what they did. They did what the board charged. Now they need to present it, and the board needs to decide where we go and what we do. But it was also recommended that you all make some recommendations to the board as to what next steps we could consider. So I know that you just received that this evening, so that might be an issue as well, but I just want to make sure that you're aware, Tom, that that's what that sheet is right there.
Okay, can I just make another comment, please?
Sure.
It's about that.
Yep.
I'm a real fan of never using new language if you've got old language that's fine, because it just confuses things, in my opinion.
So what you see on the what's next sheet is, or whatever it's called, has been pulled from the document
Right.
itself. It's not new thinking. In fact, the most thinking I did was how to form it.
I think it might be a good idea to give us a month.
Give us some time to look at
Prepare
it.
and have a good in-depth discussion on
Yeah.
it next month.
Sure.
That'd be
Okay.
great.
I'm comfortable with that. It'll give us an opportunity to look at it. I don't know how you guys feel.
Having been on the committee, I've spent a lot of time.
Yeah. It's a little hard for the two of us.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure we're respecting the other colleagues that were not on the committee to give them ample time to take a look at it.
I have looked it over and I feel comfortable with it. Oh, the next step.
Can you use the microphone, please?
The microphone.
Oh,
I don't think it's on, actually. Here you go.
is it on now?
Yes.
Okay. I did look it over and I thought it was, I couldn't believe how much work you guys had done on it, first of all. And, I just think that, you know, you should continue on to whatever the next step is that you feel is appropriate. I felt comfortable with it, you know, reading it. But it doesn't make any difference to me. If you just want another month, that's fine too.
I think if we could just think out loud for a moment here with this, I guess what I would want to do is really kind of talk about what is it that we would like to do when we come back next month. So maybe we could use this time, if that's okay, to really kind of talk about, you know, what would we like to be able to determine with this when we come back? Does that make sense, Paul?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. So what are some things that you think that might work, or things that we might want to consider when we're coming back, or thoughts that we want to explore? It's hard because we've
Honestly,
worked on
I
this.
don't mean to be rude, but I'm still trying to actually read this.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. I
okay,
mean, I did attend one of the meetings as just a spectator,
yeah.
but I haven't had a chance to.
You haven't had a chance to look at it yet? Okay, all
In fact, I'm
right.
not even sure where it starts, you know, where the actual plan starts. As we go from, Lillian, maybe you can help me out, because you got it down. Where do you think the plan starts and the preamble ends?
Is there a specific thing that you're looking at, Paul, for question?
Well, no, I mean, I'm just trying to, you know, we've got a lot of kind of introductory materials,
That's correct.
and I just want to make sure when I get into the meat of this, I haven't missed where we, yeah, I mean, you know.
I think that's a good follow-up thing, because you haven't had an opportunity to take a look at it yet. It might be good for that, you know, maybe we develop those questions. There are things on here that we're not sure about, or, you know, what am I approving? Why am I approving this? That kind of thing.
Mhm.
I mean, that makes sense to me. You know, really my understanding is that we're acknowledging the work that the committee has done, validating the research that's been conducted to the community and the responses back, as well as, and I am really talking off the top of my,
This isn't really a plan, this is
Right.
this is a process.
this is part of the process, yes.
I think what we have to think about is where we go and
Mhm.
who does it from here on, whether it's this same group or whether
I agree.
we have something else.
Mhm.
The plan is self-explanatory.
Yeah.
It's not a plan, the process is self-explanatory, and it's good, it's fine.
Mhm.
I guess I'd like to continue reading it. I did skim over it, and I would like to look at it some more. We have to, and I think we have to think where we're going.
Right.
And I don't think I want to do that right now.
Right, and I think also the sheet that Naomi handed out to us this evening might be helpful for us when we're looking at this plan again, because we didn't have this with the plan, which was not their mission to do. But that might help us in saying, okay, where do we go from here? You know, because quite frankly, you're right, it's not the full
Right.
developed plan.
This
is
actually looks more like the plan.
the next steps, right?
Right?
Well, this is the next steps of developing the plan. I think that really what this is, here's the research and here's what's been done thus far to get ready to decide what we're doing with the plan.
Naomi, you really didn't get to discuss the implementation you discussed this initial process and how things would be analyzed.
Right.
And,
Yep.
okay, and what you thought we needed to do. Do you
Yeah.
have any thoughts to offer? Well, so we can think about it over the next month.
And I would like to open that up to Holly, and I believe Barb is also here, and Barb has also been an intricate part in this development, so I'd love to hear from all of you, if that's okay with the board.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that looking at target audiences and potential activities or strategies or techniques or whatever we want to call them on any given day, was helpful and hopefully will be helpful to you all in terms of trying to frame what our priorities would be, what your priorities would be in terms of the implementation. The survey results also feed into that, and I can say it now because I'm not doing the official presentation. I wasn't a fan of the survey by any stretch of the imagination, but and I wasn't from research perspectives. It's not a it wasn't a research base. It wasn't it wasn't a official sample, whatever the technical terms are. And so I have some trouble taking data like that and making it, it's almost my N of one. One person complains about something, and suddenly everybody has to do something different based on that one person. Well, we had 400 and however many people who said less than so and such. But having said that, it is informative of at least a certain number of people who actually came to vote as to what was important to them, both in terms of what the content of communication or what the priority should be and how we should go about doing that. Doesn't mean it's cast in stone. It doesn't mean that you all won't decide that number 5 is actually what really needs to be happening right now. Or that, newspaper articles are fine, but really that's not going to get to the most people with the most fidelity. So I guess what I'm saying is, and I don't guess what I'm saying, what I'm saying is that you need to factor in the other realities in terms of what it is that we have suggested here, but what we've really done is to try to capture a reasonable set of information about who our target audiences are, and we didn't prioritize those because God knows that would have been splitting hairs and taken us the rest of our lives, but also prioritizing the different kinds of strategies. I would add to this, and this is where it gets really complicated in terms of writing something down. I think that it's not just one communication strategy that goes for this population and one for that. Parents, you probably need to approach them from many different perspectives. The community, you have to too. Not everybody's on the internet. Not everybody reads the legal summary. And it just, if your goal, and I would submit that it should be, if your goal is to reach the most number of people with the best possible information, then you can't be a one-shot,
Absolutely.
whatever it's called. So I would be thinking about that. In terms of who's going to implement it, it's probably not this committee. It's probably not. And it may not even be a committee. Or, I hesitate even to say that this committee could take the next step in terms of creating some of those priorities. I don't know, it doesn't feel right to me.
Yeah, and I think that was part of the discussion of the committee when we were together, some of these very questions that are being asked right now, as well as the thought process on the actual tool that was used, the research tool.
Well, and I have to say, I like that research tool. I would really encourage, even in our real life, or our other life.
I'm sorry, I should have clarified that I'm talking about the survey.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the race model, which
Yep.
we're proposing be applied. I just think it's a really good idea to be systematic. And I don't think it necessarily means agonized. But if you don't have a process, if you don't know where you're going, then you're going to end up someplace else. And so that framework, I think, provides a kind of map for where you want to go and how you choose to get there.
Let me give you a concrete example, and Holly, I don't know, and Barbara, but this is kind of what I would like to see or was hoping to see. The survey tells us that the number one thing, and again, there's a diverse number of things people want to see, but the number one thing people seem to want to see is news about achievement, student achievement, and district achievement. And then the number one method they want to see it in, and again, it's diverse, but the number one method they want to see it is newspaper articles, according to the survey. Was it 2 years ago, Tom, or previous year, one of the things we put in as a board goal, a very general board goal, is to get out more newspaper articles or press releases about student achievement, district achievement. I think there's no surprise that.
Yeah, I was gonna say we did that last year as well.
Last year.
Yeah.
So there's no surprise that that survey came back with that. But here's what I would love to hear, because I honestly don't know this, is how do we do that? How do we incentivize the faculty to produce more content about that? Do we require that? Can that be part of a negotiations in the future where we say, hey, we would like each teacher to produce a press release quarterly about his or her occurrences or significant accomplishments? Do we hire somebody or create a position or a portion of a position whose job it would be then to pursue these articles and maybe approach people or look for things and say, hey, you know what, Teacher X, we heard this happened. This would be a great press release. I'm going to write it, but I need to interview you and your students.
Right. You know, Paul, it's interesting that you bring that up, because that is actually the conversations that we were having in the communication advisory. And one of the things that we toyed with was making sure that the advisory committee got the information together, really presented it to the board to really, you know, look at all of this presentation and then say, okay, let's have discussion, because I think that's a valid discussion that we have to have. Moving forward with the administration as well, when we're going to the next steps, to really ask, what are we going to do? What types of strategies will there be? I think that certainly involves more in-depth discussion, and perhaps from your recommendation of holding off a month, I think that might be really good for us, for our homework, to kind of really take a look at this with questions and discussion points for us together at the next meeting. I just didn't know if other people from the committee wanted to.
I would just, Naomi, we all worked together great. It was a wonderful experience, but Naomi and I disagree on this. I love the survey.
Yeah. You worked really hard on it. Bart, just so that you're aware, did all the calculations, tabulated by hand.
And when I handed those out to people, they looked like, oh, I have a chance to really let somebody know, and I promised them that they would be looked at. So that was a good communication tool in itself.
And we talked about that as well, Bart, because one of the things that we talked about is that people trusted us to fill these instruments out, and we're here to say that we've looked at them and we've calculated them, and we're taking them seriously.
Yeah. So and that was just, I like the idea. I think this is something you talk about later, is to have somebody, have a community person after board budget votes and just help people. Some people were confused about how to vote, where to vote. And that's a good communication tool. You don't have to give them information, just be there to be a resource if they have a question, like where do I vote, where do I put it, what do I do? So I like the survey for so many reasons, not just for the results, but the process of handing it out, the process of talking to people when they said, what is it, who are you, you know, this is great. And so I liked it. I think it's a good tool, and I would appreciate the board to take it seriously. You know.
I have no problem with other people taking it.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
I will just add my own personal opinion as to certain areas where I think very specifically we could use this race model to promote better communication between the school and the community. I certainly, you know, I like some of the information on the survey. Certainly, I do think we need to be better at PR, because quite frankly, this is what this is about. It's about PR. You need positive PR to create a positive atmosphere about the school. We have to sell our school. We have to, and I don't want to say sell our students, but we have to sell our students' achievements. And I think that will put more confidence in the community when it comes in regards to the school. Certainly, due to the position that I'm in, I'm a teacher in another district, but I can only tell you some things that work well in another district. First off, we have an excellent website. You go to our website, you see the kids, you see the faces, you see what they're involved in, you see the sports, everything is very easily accessible. Parents can go and they can get documents and download and print. They can get to the class websites very easily. Information is extremely accessible on our on our school website. And I've been to the Cambridge website, even just to get to the cafeteria thing, to load more money onto my students, onto my son's card thing, whatever that thing is called. It takes me, like every time I go, and granted I don't do it often, but I'm novice enough with a computer where I've done it once, all right, this is not my first rodeo. However, every time I go, and I'm sitting there feeling like it's my first time all over again. So I really don't think our website is as functional and as accessible to people as it should be. So that would be newspapers, and that would be certainly 2 avenues I would look into. Certainly, I think, I'm pretty sure, because I've gotten a couple robot phone calls, I think we could utilize that more. And I don't know, specifically if it costs every time you use the robot phone call or not, but I think that that's a great way to get information out quickly to parents of children for whatever need. I myself, I use it all the time at my school, being a class advisor. I'm always calling them all the time. Don't forget your fundraiser, don't forget this, don't forget that. And parents actually tell me all the time that they really do appreciate those little things, and I think it's those little things that will add up to be a big thing. I know in our group we did have some other discussions about other forms of social media. I personally think that would perhaps could open up a huge can of worms, but I suppose it's up to the board to make that decision for yourselves. But we definitely need to find better vehicles and better avenues to have better PR about our school and to sell it to our community.
Thank you, Holly. Paul, Tom, and Lillian, some other stuff that was discussed in line with what you're talking about was possibly, do we want to consider subgroups where they take that task, for example, the question that you were asking, Paul, where they take the task of, if we want to, we'll just use the newspaper because that's the first thing that came up. If we want more pictures, more articles, more things in the newspaper, do we want to have a team that's taking a look at that? How can we do that, and what are some of our options? Do we want to look, for volunteers? Do we want to look for, whatever in-house, and really kind of come up with some different ideas to bring back for food for thought for the board and the administration to consider. So there was different things. Can you think of anything else? I know that was part of it.
Well, I was thinking of the website.
Yeah, the website was another big conversation.
We also do monthly newsletters to the community, and that also helps people that live in the community have access to what's going on in the school, but don't necessarily have kids in the district. So
Right.
that would apply to the elderly and, just to people, maybe perhaps their kids have graduated or
Right.
whatever. And the faculty does help put those together.
Holly, quick question about the district you work at, their website. Do you know if they have a full-time webmaster?
They
or
don't have a
whatnot?
full-time webmaster. They have a faculty member maintains the website, and it's a small stipend.
So with that question right there, some of the discussion was, do we get groups to kind of look into this and research how different people are doing different things and how are they handling it, if there are any costs, different things like that. I mean, I don't know, I just want to share with you that there was lots of different discussions in alignment with what you're talking about.
This is something that we didn't discuss in the communication committee, but it's something that occurred to me, I don't know, a few weeks ago. There's a difference between having a system in place for advertising or documenting or publicizing, is the word, I guess. Student achievement, faculty achievement, staff achievement, whatever, and responding to a crisis. So
Yes.
it's kind of like chronic versus
Yep.
acute. So what I would suggest, and we're really talking in this plan, on the surface, we're talking about chronic.
Mhm.
But the complaints are more likely to be triggered by an acute episode.
So my recommendation would be, and if I were sitting where you were sitting, I'd be ranting and raving about this, would be that you should take a look at acute events, the kinds of acute events that have occurred in the probably recent past, and submit them to that race model and figure out how it is that you're gonna respond the next time. And maybe even look at, and I'm not sure if this is in that model, but look at what worked and what didn't work, so that you can, hopefully roll it forward in a more effective way. Because I know there's been a couple of things that have happened that I didn't know about that really disturbed me, because sometimes I have little people in my house after school, and it would have been important for me to know what had been going on. So, I mean, that's just an example. It was an acute thing that happened, and I didn't have any way of knowing about it except via this information on Facebook.
That's a good point. Thank you for sharing that.
I think it was Paul that mentioned something about teachers putting stuff in the newspaper. I've only had two, I went to, and I can't even remember the woman's name, and I'm sorry, but, her class helped with some quilts that were sent down to the hurricane victims. And I said to her, it would be great if you could take a picture and get it in the newspaper, and they did. And the teacher said, wow, she didn't even think about that, They have a lot of other things that they do. And also there was something in the Spanish class that the kids had done, and they had a big display, and they had a little open house if they wanted to, anybody wanted to go to it. And I said to the Spanish teacher, this would be great if you could take a picture and just a little blurb under the picture and get it to the newspaper, and she did. And again, she said, gee, I never thought of that, So I think that, maybe if it was encouraged, the teachers would do it. I don't think it's that they don't have time to do it. I think that they just don't always think of it,
Well, I think that, as far as when we're discussing this, that's where I would want to possibly broach the faculty and say, you tell us, what are your recommendations in regards to that? But yeah, I mean, I think that, I agree with you, Paul, that I think that where we're at is we've got a lot of information, which is very helpful. And I think now what we need to do is decide where do we go next and how are we going to look at this, whether that's the board, whether that's the same committee, whether that's subgroups, whether we decide that we're not going to look at it, I don't know. But, I think that is our next steps. And I think in order to do that, I do think that we need to have a little bit of time, the whole board does, to be able to just digest the discussion.
Are you three people out there willing to go on? Just we ask you.
Depends.
I would. I strongly believe that this is one of the biggest areas in that.
Barb, can't.
I'm with Naomi. I think it would depend.
And what the charge would be,
Yeah.
what the next level would be,
That's for us to think about.
And if it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it has to be fun.
Well, if you're on it, it's going to be.
I'm really serious about that,
I know.
right?
Mhm. Anything, so do we want to take a look at this, really think about it, and come back?
Yes.
I think also that it would be great if you three and your committee have any specific suggestions. I mean, this is very general, a lot of it, but if you have any specific things, like Holly was saying tonight about the website, if you have any specific things about the website that maybe we could do.
I can get you a whole list.
But,
Be careful with that.
Yeah.
I know. Open mouth and third foot, right?
Thank you very much.
Very welcome.
These guys did a huge job and worked very hard on this, so I do appreciate your commitment to this.
You are welcome. Okay, good.
Yeah, thank you for all the work. I appreciate everything you guys have done. The social studies report we're going to put off till next month. Colleen now, summer school, what is that? The summer school report, Colleen couldn't make it tonight. We sat down as an administrative team and came up with some conference days, superintendent conference days, and we'll be getting those out to everybody. Back The other thing, we had a superintendent or a chief school officers meeting, and we have been told the April BOCES board date. We always seem to have a problem with that, so what I would like to do is change our April board meeting to that date, because you have to meet on that date. But they told us it was Monday, April 22nd. Monday is the 21st. We're not in session on the 21st, so I'm assuming it's going to be Monday or Tuesday, May 22nd. But I will confirm that next month, and we'll make that an action item.
April 22nd?
April 22nd. That's the day that you have to vote on the board members, and this is the budget, BOCES budget.
Right.
And there's no, you have to meet that day. So our meeting was supposed to be April 8th, I believe. We can move it to the 22nd. April 8th is before vacation. April 22nd is the Tuesday. We come back, and we have the Monday off at this point. So I'll get that. Hopefully we'll have that. We'll have the social service. Again, the summer school presentation. The communication plan we'll put on the agenda for next month, and hopefully it'll be Tuesday the 2nd April. Anybody?
I don't know if this is on, is this?
Yep.
Because it's my latest version.
Oh.
Opening of school, obviously, we're up and running. Things seem to go pretty smoothly. And just 7th graders are starting to run less and walk more, so we're making progress on that front. We started senior privileges today, so the steps that we normally take at the beginning of school are starting to fall into place. APPR, Colleen and I are working in conjunction with the CFA tomorrow to orient new staff about what our process looks like, what they can expect to see in terms of observations, pre-observation, post-observation meetings, walkthroughs, and what the whole thing looks like in totality. So we'll be meeting in the high school library tomorrow with folks who are new and some folks who are returning to us, but were not part of our APPR plan last year. So although they may have experienced it somewhere else, you know, it does vary district to district. Composite scores from last year's numbers for for teachers who got state numbers, and also ones who had local numbers derived from SLOs. Those numbers have been shared with staff members, so they know what not only their composite score is, but whether they were considered to be highly effective, developing, or ineffective teachers from the past school year. And we are starting the next round. Pre-tests are underway for teachers who are responsible for developing SLOs. I know some pre-tests have already been administered, and the pre-tests are starting to come into my office. They are being administered to students, and based on the pre-testing data, teachers are starting to write their SLOs. So those SLOs were identified for them, and they've been working on the pre-testing portions of the SLO writing. High school, junior, senior high school open house is October 3rd. The time that's written in the agenda is wrong. It actually starts at 6 o'clock. One of the additions that we're going to have this year, we have some folks coming in from Reality Check. They are an anti-tobacco use organization, and based on our drug survey last year, when they called me and said, you know, can we come in at any point, we would, you know, we're certainly welcoming them. And I intend to also have staff here again for folks who want to sign up for a parent portal, who are not able to do so. So there will be some booths available for kids who are in the building, but also for parents, obviously, who are here for open house. So that's it.
Thank
you. In my report, there's a number of things that Tammy has already shared with us. APPR is underway. Teachers that are needing to write SLOs have begun that process. We are very, very busy right now with initial benchmark testing. Individual classroom teachers are running records for reading, and we are doing our computer-based assessment in Star Renaissance for all grade levels for math and ELA, math and reading. We've also added a writing rubric this year, so we're trying to gather more data and to
be a little bit better at using the data to inform our instruction as we move forward in this new age. Speaking of moving forward in this new age, I have to do a thank you to the elementary staff. Teachers are a lot like synchronized swimmers in some ways, or ducks, if you will. When you come into a school or you walk into a classroom, it looks like they have it all together, and they do. The students never see all the work that goes on underneath the surface, and there is so much work. And right now, with all the changes that are taking place, there's an awful lot of stress, and there's a lot of things that are still unknown with regard to this new process. So I appreciate the fact that our teachers remain professional, and what we see above the surface is always a calm, cool, collected individual, and except for me. But they always pull it together for the kids, and I'm always amazed by that. So thanks for that. And our open houses, our primary open house is September 19th, kindergarten through grade 3, 6 till 7. And September 26th is the 4 to 6 open house, 6 to 7. I also want to mention that student reports from the New York State tests will be going out from both buildings on Friday. So they've been released as of the 16th and will be coming into homes next week.
The treasurer's report reflects the month of August. As much like July, not a lot of money comes in, money just goes out. So it's a one-way street there. You can see there's some activity, the capital project. Bills are being paid. We are starting to get towards the punch list in the project, so that's good. Hopefully another month or two. As I mentioned in the August meeting, the auditors were on staff. I've yet to receive a draft. I was told hopefully by the end of this week. So I'm hoping to have it reviewed and something in your hands in plenty of time before the October 15th presentation, and give you time to look it over if you have any questions. One thing we will be written up for is the school lunch program lost money. It was somewhat anticipated given that we were under construction and we were using disposable trays and rather than washing the stuff, so that comes with a cost. Been talking with Mrs. Braun. Breakfast was very limited last year. The numbers are already up, back to normal. High school wasn't able to really access it. Lunch, she was unable to sell a la carte items last year. She's able to do that. The regs, as she mentioned, I think in the spring, also is impacting the program, as it is many other schools. And we're starting an after-school snack program, piloting the 7 through 12. So hopefully that'll help to increase revenues as well. The school lunch programs in most schools are being hit a negative impact by the contractual benefits. It's hard to keep up with those increases without increasing the price of the lunches, breakfasts to the students. So it's impacting all schools. These are unaudited, but I'm happy to report that we will be able to get our unappropriated, unassigned fund balance back up to the legal limit of 4%, stayed just a little under. And you'll see there is a small excess of $26,000. It's one of the resolutions that'll be going to our debt service. If there's any questions at that time, I'll be happy to entertain them. Any questions?
Thank you.
The only thing I have to say or add to that, with some of the lunch programs, you've seen some schools opt out. They have a very small free and reduced lunch. That's why they have that as an option. We don't. So we can't opt out, but it does have a tremendous impact on the bottom line. I think they relaxed the one thing where you can only get
4.5 sandwiches.
4.5 slices of
Grains
bread.
or something, 9 grains.
So there have been some small
Cut the peanut butter and
tweaks.
jelly in half.
Yeah, well, that's basically what it was. It
Yeah.
was an option that they would take a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, but we had to keep track because somebody couldn't do that 5 days a week. So
Yeah.
they have relaxed that, and now they can. It's impossible to monitor some of the criteria. But Amy does a good job.
Yeah, she does.
That's all.
Okay, board reports. Paul, do you want to start?
I just wanted to thank the teachers and the administrators for another good opening to another year. I said this last year, but I want to repeat it. Even you guys get an earful for the handful of things that don't go right. That's what you're dealing with for quite a while, and I think we tend to forget the thousands of things that do go right. There's really very little praise for those things. It's the squeaky wheels and the wet floors, etc. That tend to draw all the attention. And I just wanted to say thanks for the 10,000 things you guys do properly. That's all I have.
Tom?
Building committee. First of all, every year a former client of mine brings me a couple of cartons full of school supplies. She's done this, I think, for 4 years now. And I gave those to Colleen a little while ago. She just likes to help out Cambridge. She doesn't even live in the state. She lives in Bennington. Just a nice lady. Works at Walmart, and I think she just picks up, used to work at Walmart, she just picks up things that are on sale and puts them in a box, and once a year give them to me. And Colleen will take care of it. Thank you. Building committee. The project is finishing up. The windows, I think, are done, and the biggest problem Vince touched on and talked about in some detail last month was the biofilters, which are in fact working to keep water drained, but in fact were poorly designed, and all the dirt that's in there is now gone, or disappearing quickly. So all the vegetation that's supposed to be on the surface died, and weeds took over. So that is in the process of being worked out. That's why they're surrounded by orange fencing right now, and that will be worked out before this is done. The gym, is the gym done yet? I haven't been over there.
The one coat is on the floor today. As a matter of fact, the final curtains or blinds are being put in the rooms with the windows, so there's a little smell of newness. The unit ventilators, the heat was turned on today for the first time, and the new unit ventilators have a little new smell. And on top of that, we have the floor being finished. We should take possession of the floor. This was a discussion at the committee today, the construction meeting today. They keep pushing back the time. Now they say a week from this Thursday we'll have the floor, but the bleachers won't be in. So we should be able to have a couple of volleyball games. It's driving Deb crazy and me as well. I expressed my frustration.
It's a construction project and nothing ever goes 100% on schedule.
But the floor looks great.
I was
The
going
gym
to say, I
looks
heard that it
fantastic.
looks really good.
Oh, yeah.
And the small gym is, that's after the.
That will be after.
That surface, the gym, the floor in the small gym will be resanded and resurfaced. The committee talked about having an open house to show off the new project. I think the tentative date was the 19th of October, and we were going to have another meeting.
Or, that's good.
Next week.
Okay, and that will be.
Heard back from some, but not all, so
Okay.
it's not really set in stone yet.
Okay, that will be finalized, and if it's not the 19th of October, it'll be sometime after that. I think it depends on how much, whether the bleachers are in and that kind of stuff, because we want to show off the whole thing. One thing that isn't going to be done this year is the new security entrance, and that was because of unforeseen problems. That will be done in the early spring. And Barbara and I both talked about the solar panels, 200 kilowatt system on our roofs is going to be great. The new project, we're talking about a new project which we are calling the library project, because that'll be the centerpiece, turning our libraries into real media centers. And we will be working on both the elementary and the high school library if the project is approved, moving some offices around. It's a smaller project. It's still an expensive project. It's $3.9 million. And we had a big discussion of the locker rooms. We put the locker rooms off initially in our discussions a couple of months ago because of the expense. But the locker rooms are, I guess, as a medical person, I think they're bordering on medical catastrophe. So the discussion was to put them back in the next project as Part B. In other words, if Part A, Proposition A, which is the library part of the project, is approved, then Proposition B could be approved also. Proposition B will not go by itself. It'll be the addendum to the initial library project. It does need to be done. Anyone who cares to should take a tour. If you don't have kids that play sports, go take a tour. They're awful. There's no other adjective that fits.
Tom,
That
do
we
you have
can
a price
repeat
on
in
that?
public. What?
Do you have a price on this?
Yeah. That's a 1.7 million project. Total would be, if my arithmetic is right, 5.6. So that will be, I think we talked about tentative dates on that in February.
February, March.
Yeah, February, March, tentative for a vote on those two things. The committee felt we wanted to get everything done with the current project. We have a lot to prove from past performance. We have to prove to the community we actually did it. I think the project has gone great. The delays, you know, as somebody who redid his own house, nothing goes right in construction projects. Oh, everything takes longer. One trip to the hardware store is never enough. It takes 3 or 4. So I know how that stuff works. And this is a project multiplied by 4,000. So it's a big deal. It's gone great. I think our architect, our superintendent, our clerk of the works, building supervisor deserve a lot of credit for getting this done right. And I hope you'll all come and see it on the 19th or whatever the date, excuse me, the date is that we do that.
Are we going to invite the media as well?
I assume we'll invite anybody. It's an open house.
We're gonna work the details at the next building.
Yeah, we haven't even formalized the date yet. The 19th was talked about as a convenient date. And that's all in my reports.
I'm just thinking as a segue to that during open house, elementary open houses and the high school open house, would be a good way to get that information out.
That's part of why we wanted to have a separate one, because we wanted to concentrate on that as opposed to taking away from the open houses.
Right.
So-
But I just need the date.
Communicating the date.
Oh, getting the date out.
Wasn't the 19th, wasn't that homecoming weekend?
Yes.
That's why we talked about that.
We were hoping the alumni when they
It
were
would be
around.
nice. It
We
would
were
be nice
looking at,
if
it's a
something
home
done.
game, so we could have like tours in the morning and
That'd be great.
in the afternoon, after the game.
Excellent.
It'd be tough in the morning, showing the locker rooms.
Yeah.
So we'll work those details.
Communication Advisory Committee, I think they did a great job. They were already here. I was just gonna say we met on August 28th to review one last time the draft, and we tweaked those, and then Naomi and Holly were willing to present for us, so that was great. And I'm thankful as well as proud of all the work that went into that. A follow-up to the backpack program. In the Eagle this week, there was lots of great things on page 8. I just ripped the whole page out. The Loaves and Fish Food Pantry announces the beginning of a supplemental weekend food program for homes for school-aged children here at our school. So there's information in the newspaper about that, so that's great to see that happening. Also, CCS recognized teachers, and I think I saw one from here, tenure, Heidi Recker back there somewhere?
Yeah, she is.
For numbers of years of service here
Service.
to the school, so that was awesome to see as well. The other thing that I wanted to mention was, there's one other piece on here. Oh, it was the part about the Cambridge Elementary Open House and the youth football chicken barbecue and fall sports are off. I don't even know who won the soccer game. I haven't seen my daughter yet tonight. But anyhow, football's off, soccer's off, all the fall sports are off to a great start. The only other question I actually had was, we have not had I'm also on the Energy and Sustainability Committee, which hasn't met in several months, so I was just asking what is going to happen with that, if we know.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had a chance to talk to Phil Milton.
Okay. So that's it. I received a letter, as I'm sure every other board member did here, from the New York State Senate, from Betty Little, just thanking us for our service to the board. So it's nice to get a letter and not a bill, and a thank you with that. So just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. Well, Well, I'd like to just jump on in regards to the sports because I feel like it's something that I need to say. On Monday, the girls' varsity soccer team was playing here at home. And as I was watching the game and watching the audience and all of that, I had such a wonderful feeling come over me. Who was there? Our boys' football team was there. Our boys' soccer team was there. There was a lot of people from the community there. And the sense of pride that was there was phenomenal. There was Cambridge, the Cambridge chant was going on. It was just a really, those that were there, I know there's some people in the audience that were there, it was such a phenomenal feeling. And I just wanted to say to the kids, kudos to all of you. The girls' soccer went to the boys' soccer. The girls' soccer went to the boys' football. Just really the coaches and the students are working together to really work together and really build that pride. So I was very proud of that. So I just wanted to take a moment to say, good job, kids. So that's that. I was just recently at a meeting in Albany. Cambridge was invited to the Commissioners' Roundtable, where there were 25 New York State School Board members who were, what's the word I'm looking for? Offered to come, and I was lucky to be able to represent Cambridge there. It was no surprise, actually, to the discussions. It was a lot in regards to APPR, Common Core, state aid, a lot of questions in regards also to merge or not to merge. And I plan on sharing with my colleagues the presentation that was made, as well as some links for you to have as well. But overall, no real surprises in regards to where we're at financially and all of that. There was some really good questions and some offerings to the commissioner to consider from various schools board members, and some of them were there who really had started with the Common Core right in the draft mode when it was in draft mode in 2009, who were there saying, we're doing okay. We were some of those schools that started right when you started, but we want to make sure there's funding there. And then there were other schools there saying, help us. We're little schools, and what are you going to do to assist us with funding and implementing. So, it was a good conversation. I think that he listened to some of the board members in regards to some things that we'd like to see, but overall he was very direct and very honest, and what would be able to happen and would not, and he did take some offerings from that. So I valued that opportunity very much. It was it was really a good discussion, and really people looking to support their school districts and their faculty and staff and children. So.
Before we move on, I just have a question for Vince. How are we doing with the distance learning?
The room is up and running. We don't have any courses at this point. What Andy's trying to do is go through and see if there's anything that lines up with some openings. We still have the capability of picking up a half-year course if there's anything that is offered that we are interested in, or if somebody wants to offer a course. But at this point, the room is totally functional, but at this point, not operational. We're going to try to take students that have a study hall or whatever at a particular time, or a course that they're interested in, so we know what we can offer next year. We're still having an issue. There's the Washington County group of schools that did the shared services.
Yep.
They're going to have a meeting coming up. I had sent an email out to let you guys know. And one of the topics that I want is, again, the Common Bell schedule. We need to have that, because as of right now, of the 7 districts, there's only like 2 that are even close. And then when I say close, they're within a couple of minutes. And they have different lengths of periods, so throughout the day it will run off. So
And Vince, that was brought up at that meeting as well,
Oh, yeah.
and how, obviously, I don't think we need to tell you, but very much supports where we need to go in order to be able to do that distance learning, the common.
there's a lot of issues with getting a Common Bell schedule. Some of them could just be the fact that they don't want to change, but some of them are also driven by the fact that some have 2 bus runs for the elementary and the secondary, so they can't change bell schedules, or they just have for years started at 8:15 as opposed to we're basically 7:53. So that's a huge difference when it comes to a course being offered in a distance learning.
I know some of the discussion at the roundtable that people brought up as well is how long some of the kids are on the bus right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, you know, if they've looked at that at all, or if that's impacted us not being able to get the common dollar.
It's not been a reason why we can't adapt, because we changed a couple of years ago when, actually last year when we did the extracurriculars during that time period. We Cambridge changed. And I think we can do it, but people are, well, adapt to our bell schedule. And I tried to do a common schedule where everybody had to tweak a little bit, so nobody had ownership. And everybody says it's a great idea, but actually change is gonna be the hard thing. So,
I'm looking forward to that. I think that distance learning will be a great opportunity for our children, and it's an out-of-the-box way of thinking. I mean, I thought that, you know, for lack of better words, I thought we were struggling. Sitting around a table with 25 board members, literally from all over New York State, you see where you're looking at some people who are frustrated because they're getting rid of one of their languages and they have multiple, and you're going, okay. Where you have others who are just about ready to eliminate language altogether. And, you know, different, I'm using language because that's one of the things that's popping into my head. And so you definitely see that, you know, everyone's struggling different ways, and everyone really had a valid point. You know, those that were better off, so to speak, financially, were saying, you know, we want to make sure we're going to continue to, so that we can continue to keep achieving where we are. And others were, you know, like, we need some help here to keep things going and keep what we have going. So it was.
some of the Long Island schools had a dilemma of cutting the fourth language or equestrian.
Yeah.
And we're struggling with keeping it.
Right, and so you could, they did a very good job with what they did for representation, because you could see all of it. You could see it all, and we're certainly not at the bottom, and we're certainly not at the top with those concerns.
And with the distance learning, I don't know if everybody's aware we got the $25,000 this year in bullet aid from Betty Little.
Yeah.
That was basically to cover the local share, so the distance learning room. We went through BOCES, yes, we have to pay for it this year, and the amount of money that we got this year will cover the local share when we get reimbursed next year. So at the end of next year, it will be a wash, where it didn't cost us anything.
You had mentioned at some time when we had met, trying to get some business on the distance learning.
That's one of the things, everybody seems to be going after the upper level courses in distance learning. There are 4 of us, of the 7, that have either done away with their business program or have decimated it. And I think, quite frankly, if we do something in an entry-level business course, it would be a course that other districts would pick up, so we could host it. So, yeah, I'd love to do something along those lines. Yeah.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the discussions, hopefully at the next group meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
no problem.
Any other board reports before we move on? Okay. The policies under the second reading, so we don't have to do anything there this evening.
Excuse me, Carrie, we have some old business that I don't see on here. Last month, Paul asked about a hearing, because there's some possible infractions by board members of the code of conduct, and I don't see it on here. I thought you were going to look into that.
A hearing? I don't remember a hearing.
Special meeting.
A special meeting. We have a consultation with our attorney this evening, so certainly, and I'm not sure what I can share or what I can't share, but certainly there's been consultation in regards to some of that information. So I would recommend our attorneys here this evening, we can certainly have that discussion. Anything else for old business? Okay. Alrighty, new business. Consider approval of the consent agenda as listed in the consent agenda for personnel and the consent agenda for new business. Let's take a look at this. And that is down at the bottom on the second page, 1.2 for everyone that's looking for it.
It goes over to 1.
And it goes over to 1.3. So if we could take a moment. I'm made a recommendation, I'm just waiting for a second.
Second.
Discussion?
That's a question.
Sure.
I have a question on the 1.3, the additional coaches pending certification.
I'm sorry, could you?
I'm looking at 1.3, the top, where it says call coaches pending certification.
The second bullet?
Yeah. Is that forthcoming? Like, is that,
That,
do we know when that's happening?
that's how they're always appointed, because some of them have it existing and others are currently enrolled in some courses. So the certification, if they're enrolled, will be coming. So yeah, this is how we normally appoint it. They should be all okay. If there isn't, I will let you know.
And I believe that you told me the other day as long as the main coach for volleyball or whatever you're looking at is certified, the secondary coach doesn't have to be certified?
Right.
So they don't even have to be taking the course, right?
I'm not aware that they're not taking the course.
I was gonna say, there
I
are
can check that out
some
with
certain
that.
ones, don't they,
Yeah.
that they have to, even though
Oh,
that
yeah.
they, because
They
they're
have to
with the
take
kids
first-
and stuff.
first aid.
Yeah, yeah, there's,
They-
not to the extent
There's
of
a
the.
coaching
yeah,
certificate that is
right.
issued, as well as you need first aid.
yeah.
You can have first aid without being certified, as long as you're with somebody that is certified.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 5, right? Was that 5, guys? Anybody? Under B, appointments, Michael Brady for biology, PE. I recommend the approval of the 3-year probationary appointments for Michael Brady. .6 biology teacher and .4 PE teacher.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
NISBA delegate, designate a BOE member to represent Cambridge Central School at the 2013 annual NISBA meeting on October 26th in Rochester, New York.
Do we need a second or do we need a first?
You need a second first.
Okay. Second.
Okay, discussion? I will tell you that I am in a conflict there and will not be able to be the board representative at that particular meeting. I will be there, but not under Cambridge. Anyone else? Paul?
No.
I'm certainly, as far as the delegate goes, I will be there. I will not be there on the 26th, so. Okay, so I guess we're not approving or recommending anyone? Okay. Guess we're,
So what happened? There was no.
it was no,
Nobody can vote, that's all.
right?
Nobody can vote.
Again, it's, we just don't have the voting privilege for that meeting. Okay, recommend the board approve the following resolution, be it the 17th day of September, in the year 2013, the Board of Education of the Cambridge Central School District resolves to transfer the sum of $26,353.70 from unassigned fund balance to the reserve for debt of the district.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, I know I asked this before, but what are we using that money for?
It's being set aside into a reserve, so it's, legally, it can be used to pay down debt, or you could use it at budget time if you wanted to access that, much like we use the 800,000, you could say, all right, well, let's now take a portion of our reserve and use it as a budgetary. Mostly, you try to set it aside and try not to use it.
Bless you.
You know, so you need some reserves.
So if there's something major comes up, you have it there.
Let's say we hit a budget crisis year, and it comes to, June, and I can't meet our debt service obligation, then I would come to the board and say, we need to access this money, because I
The
can't
board has
meet.
to approve it. before
Right, you
can
have to
act.
approve it, you're right, because we wouldn't be able to meet the obligations.
So in essence, this money isn't set aside for, oh, you know what, this would really look good, we'll get some more supplies, we'll save this
No.
out for that. This is really for that debt.
You're right, it is one of those, few reserves, and you need board, in this case, you need board approval. Some reserves you need voter approval, but this is a board approval, and those would be different ways of access, or different reasons for accessing it, I should say.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, over on the addendum, under new business. Recommend that we approve, what am I approving? Oh, the consent. What am I approving? Consider approval of the amended consent agenda as listed in the consent agenda for personnel. It's the one item, yeah, down below, down at the bottom of the bullet. And that's recommend the board approve Chris Warnke as a building maintenance helper with a starting salary of $22,500.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
I have a discussion first. Is this somebody that already works for us?
He's been a sub this summer, so.
Oh, that's where I have the name. Okay. So he's just gonna be going full-time?
He's gonna be accepting a full-time position at night.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor? And recommend Kristen Narkevich for the GED, which is a .6 teacher probationary appointment.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, public comment. All right, I recommend that we adjourn this meeting to go into executive session for two reasons. One in regards to student matter, which I would recommend that is the parent here. He left a while ago. Oops, okay.
We did, that he left.
Okay, okay, so we recommend to go in for consultation with the attorney. All those in favor?